going on, everybody? Welcome to Brain Balance Live. My name is Corey, and I am here with National Autism Summit speaker, Brain Balance owner, and licensed therapist, Heather Wells. Heather, how you doing, my friend?
I am doing extremely well. I love this cooler weather. I love it.
Me too. I have a jacket on, but it's only so I look stylish. It's not necessarily because I'm cold, because I'm in Florida right now, you know, so.
Oh, did you know it was in the 40s the other night in South Texas?
Wow, you're kidding me.
Holy. And I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, everybody's outside. Everybody's breathing the crisp, fresh air. You know what I do when it drops to about 50 degrees here in Florida? My pool has no heater because I'm in Florida. I mean, and there's no screen. So I'm like, whatever. And I think the pool dropped to like, I don't know, let's call it like 69, 70 degrees, whatever, which is a little chilly, not that big a deal. So I've been using it as like a pseudo ice bath, and I've been jumping in the morning, just freezing.
Cryotherapy. Right. That'll wake you up.
Personal cryotherapy. Well, listen, everybody. Today's show is about ADHD. Obviously, it is ADHD Awareness Month. And whether you have ADHD or you're struggling with a kiddo that has ADHD or not, this show is going to be for you, because really what we're talking about here is neurodiversity. And so, Heather, I'm going to let you kind of take it from here, because this is part 2 of a series that we did a while back on myth busting, right?
Yes. So 2 weeks ago, we did myth busting ADHD. There are so many misconceptions out there. I highly recommend anyone who missed that show to watch it. And so this is a standalone. If you didn't see that show, this show will still make sense. But for those of you who did, this will just be the next step in the thought process here. And so with that in mind, one of the myths that we busted, we can go ahead and go to the first slide, but one of the myths we busted was, my child has trouble with attention, impulsivity, hyperactivity, therefore it must be ADHD. And we talked about how ADHD only travels alone about 75 to 80% of the time. And if we only look at symptoms, we must know why. And this applies to any struggle. Why is it happening? What is the root cause? So as we're kind of starting this playbook, the first question to ask yourself is, do I know this is ADHD? If we're just basing it on symptoms, because ADHD is very real and it is prevalent, but it also gets misdiagnosed sometimes. But if I'm just going by, let me see, check mark symptoms, and 2 people say this, it happens in 2 environments, it's happened for 6 months or longer, that doesn't necessarily mean ADHD. A lot of those things can be caused by other struggles.
Right.
So first, if you say, yes, I absolutely know it's ADHD, great. Do I know it's ADHD alone? Because there is a much greater chance that it is not ADHD alone. This happens a lot where, okay, we found the answer. This is what's going on. And then we attribute all struggles to one thing. Right. And you have a 75 to 80% chance that there is something else accompanying it. But if I do not know it's ADHD, get a very thorough assessment to learn all the root causes. If we have 6 targets to aim at, we need to be aiming at all 6 targets so that this person can thrive fully. And there are strengths and struggles. So many times strengths mask struggles and struggles mask strengths. So, and then you've done that and you know it's ADHD. What kind of ADHD is it? There are 7 types of ADHD now. It's not just about with or without hyperactivity. And by the way, as a reminder, only about 5% of individuals about 12 to 14 and up have the physical hyperactivity. It is often mental and emotional. It's internal hyperarousal. And a lot of times people think ADHD went away. About up to 90% of people who had ADHD as kids carry it with them into adulthood. It's just that it looks different. For example, impulsivity as a child might be, I have trouble staying seated. I blurt things out and don't wait my turn. Whereas as an adult, it could be over drinking, being a shopaholic. It just looks like something different. Or physical hyperactivity became mental and emotional hyperarousal, that kind of thing. Yep. But once you have, okay, we know all the root causes, what is primary, what is secondary. So for example, anxiety and depression, both, there's a 2.7 times higher chance of struggling with depression with ADHD than for quote unquote neurotypical peers. But is the depression secondary to the shaming and the struggles of ADHD and not realizing the superpowers therein? Or is depression primary this is just an example. A lot of times women, historically, women have been massively underdiagnosed because the behaviors look different. A lot of times they will internalize their emotions and they get diagnosed with anxiety, depression, all kinds of things like that, and the ADHD is missed. So what's primary and what's secondary matters on how you tackle it. And because we're talking to a broad audience, I'm trying to give you the things to think about, and then you run with this in your situation. But okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
This is similar. This is the only slide that's similar to one from 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to remind everyone that at its crux, ADHD is not about inattention. It is an issue in the brain's self-management system. All of these abilities that you see listed here, those are like the CEO functions of the brain that help you get stuff done in life. And the top three are working memory, cognitive flexibility, and self-regulation. Those are the granddaddies from which attention, planning, time management, organization, and so forth develop. If you don't have those top three, it will impact the development of the others. And if you have kids who, I'm right, you're wrong, everything's great, everything's horrible, they see things very black and white, that is an issue of cognitive flexibility. They may have trouble appreciating someone else's point of view. Self-regulation is more than it's emotional, for sure. It's impulse control. It is the ability to ignore distractions and hone in what I'm supposed to do. So you can see why these are the top tier. I went into much greater detail on that 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to kind of lay the groundwork here.
Yeah.
What are the overlooked hallmark signs? These are not even listed in the diagnostic manual, and yet years and years of psychological and neuroscientific research let us know that rejection sensitivity, hyperarousal, again, the internal kind, and an interest-based brain are hallmarks. The reason these are not in the diagnostic manual, and they probably will be soon, and I am not speaking out on a limb here. Experts across the world in ADHD agree that these are hallmark signs. Yeah. The DSM has not caught up yet, and the symptoms listed are what it looks like in 6 to 12-year-olds. It looks different as you get older. And pills don't teach skills. I am not here to tell someone to take medication, not to take medication. That is an extremely individual decision. But what I do want to say is that alone is not enough. That can be one part of an overarching whole person approach. Okay. A pill is not going to teach someone to be organized, to persevere, to learn from their past mistakes, and that kind of thing. Okay. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Let's move on. So as a starting point for how do we grow executive function skills, these are skills. They are not innate traits. They are skills that we all learn. And those with neurodiverse struggles might need extra attention in practicing these. So this will reduce friction as well. But you know what? This morning, I had an email from one of my favorite authors. And she said, the wisest word I know, and I actually changed the slide when I read her email. That little green area, I changed what was in there. And my Southern accent is not going to do justice to the beautiful South African accent. But this is a South African greeting. Sawubona. And I apologize to all South Africans for how I just pronounced that.
Sawubona. Okay.
Instead of saying hello, that is how they greet one another. And what it means is you're not just saying hi, you're saying I see and acknowledge you. I give you space to express yourself. You are not a roadblock between me and the coffee machine. You are not a roadblock between me and trying to get dinner started. I will pause, validate, give you space and time to share your frustrations and connect instead of jumping into fix-it mode.
Wow.
That is how they greet one another. What if we approached helping our kids that way? It's so hard to see them struggle. Some problems aren't fully solvable, to be honest. Let's say that there is a personality clash between a student and a teacher. That may exist. There are still some things we can do to help, but we still, instead of saying, well, nothing you can do about it, that's your teacher, let me hear your frustrations about it. What can you control? What can't you? But we tend to want to be directors. We think we're being helpful. And there is helpfulness in this, but we are not helping kids learn to think for themselves and grow in independence. And when they grow in agency, their motivation goes up. Kids with ADHD have difficulty being able to predict that reward feeling we have for a job well done. And so they will shut down when we give them an opportunity to start growing in competence. That grows that reward feeling more organically, and they'll be much less likely to give up, opt out. I can't do it, so I won't, that kind of thing. So we don't want to be directors. We want to be collaborators. Let's investigate this. Let's explore this. Get them to think about it. And instead of us telling them how to solve something or tackle a task, let's get them brainstorming about what they can do to solve a challenge or a task. So examples of directing, you need to start your homework earlier and don't do it in bed or on the couch. That's directing. I'm telling you exactly when, how, what to do. Exploring and collaborating, how would finishing your homework earlier benefit you? What are some things that maybe you could do if you got done with your homework sooner? What's in it for me, man? That is motivating, especially for tweens and teens, but really for all of us on one level or another. And instead of telling them where not to do their homework or where to do it, where do you feel most alert? And maybe if they say bed or couch and you know that's not true, you say, you know what I've noticed? And then share your observations. What do you think about that? So you're not done. You're not setting yourself up. Oh yeah, where do they feel most alert? They're going to name wherever they want to. That might happen, but then you just add another question to it. And in general, by the way, why can't I go out with my friends tonight? What happened last time you went out with your friends the night before a test?
Yep.
Respond with a question and help them come up with a solution. You tried doing that last time and it didn't work. Try this instead. That's directing. How did it go for you last time when you studied by just reading over your notes? What's a different strategy you could try this time? Put your phone away and stay off the internet during homework time. Collaborating and brainstorming would be, what are some things you could do to stay focused? Or, hey, I found an app that's helping me stay alert and focused at work. Do you want to check it out and see what you think about it? This is a big project. You'll need some help. Instead, how about, I'm excited to see the topic you choose. Why do we say that? Because objective observation is not judgmental. We're showing interest in their lives, and it might make them more inclined to really try to think of a topic that interests them and ask, why did you choose this topic? And then you're learning more about what matters to them. What are their motivating factors? And what are some options if you need help? Have them think about these in advance before they're frustrated, because then their logical brain, their executive functions can work better than when they're in the heat of the moment. I can't do it, and give up. They already have a plan for when a little bump in the road comes.
Yep. Beautiful.
So collaborate.
Yeah, this is awesome. Sabubona. I don't know if that's how you say it or whatever, but I mean, the bottom line is I Googled it while we were talking here, and I mean, you're right. In addition to everything that you said there, it's I see you. And I love this sentence too. It said next to the definition, it's like, more than words of politeness, Sawubona carries the importance of recognizing the worth and dignity of each person.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to start saying that to my wife now,
Yes.
Right?
I love this. It's a beautiful word. It just sounds beautiful, but the meaning behind it is like true acknowledgement and honoring a person, instead of, we kind of live in this society of strategies and problem solving and get it done and hurry and instant gratification. Connection and relationship always must come first.
Yeah, so true. So true.
And by the way, when kids feel a sense of belonging and connectedness with their families and in their academic community, there is up to a 66%, they're 66% less likely to suffer the consequences, health consequences of promiscuous sex, illicit drug use, and so on. 66%. Wow. That's how much belonging matters.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. All right, so now let's think about some of these executive functions. And the biggie that usually comes to mind first with ADHD is attention. Most of the time when people think of attention, they think of attention span. How long can a person focus? It is way more than that. We have some detective work to do on this. So, is my own or my child's inattention about distractibility? Distractibility and an inability to attend are not the same thing. Distractibility leads to inattention, but not all inattention is distractibility. So regulation is huge here. Like I said, if I have self-control, man, that video game's calling my name, I hear my friends outside playing, nope, I'm going to ignore that and stay the course. That is regulation. Rule out sensory issues. Sometimes kids can't filter sound. Somebody's knocking. I hear a weird noise over there. Did somebody's car backfire? Or even a light turns on in the kitchen. Oh, what are you doing? So pay attention to what is causing the distraction. Remove visual fray. It's really good in a study space to have some things that are personally meaningful to a kid, maybe their favorite superhero character or a motto, a saying that really is uplifting to them, but they need to have blank space, because I think it's more overtly obvious when kids get distracted by noise, and it's not as obvious that clutter in the environment is clutter up here. So, and by the way, I'm going to say, because you're going to see on several of these about thinking about the sensory component. Yeah. I get asked this question a lot. My kids say they can concentrate better with music on. Is that true? Well, that is an individual answer, but understand that a lot of times in the ADHD brain, there is a gorgeous orchestra going on up there. I mean, talk about amazing capabilities, but there might be 12 orchestras playing at the same time. By having music playing, they have one orchestra to tune into. Music that a lot of times, if it does not have words, lyrics, that might be better. Things that have a strong beat, that gives them rhythm and timing to stay on track. So kids aren't necessarily, the natural, and I understand, they're full of it. They're just saying that because they want to listen to their music. It is absolutely super useful for a lot of students. Pay attention, try it with and without and see what happens. There is also specific attention for auditory input or visual input. Is there a difference in how well they attend to one versus the other? Those are sensory issues. If I am struggling to tune out extraneous noise, or if it's coming through muffled, I can't sustain focus on that as long. If I'm overwhelmed with visual fray or think it's coming at me, I'm going to tune it out as a self-protective mechanism. So another thing is working memory. If y'all watch the show, you know it is a mental sketch pad. It's where we hold a few pieces of information, like a certain part of the equation with math, in our heads while we solve the other part, and then we put them together. Or we hold in mind what we need to make this phone call and set this appointment, and then we take it out and reload with what we need next. Sensory issues are super tied. I'm using up so much of that sketch pad to try to process the sensory input or try to filter out the wrong stuff that I don't have room to stay tuned in on what I'm doing.
Right.
Alternating attention. This is Corey and I and Jen, the three of us are sitting at a restaurant tonight. Somebody drops a tray of dishes. We're deep in this conversation. That's where our attention is. We switch our attention to see what just happened. It's human nature. Cognitive flexibility says, okay, curiosity satisfied. All right, Corey, what were you saying? I'm right back with you. Yeah. Parents do this all the time. Yeah. You're on the phone. Clank, clank. Is anybody hurt? Okay. All right, Sally, what's up? That requires cognitive flexibility. If you notice your kids are kind of defiant or have trouble considering any other viewpoint, that will cause them issues with alternating attention. We use this all day, every day. Somebody walks into the classroom, and how long does it take them to start listening to the teacher again once that interruption is gone? Yeah. Divided attention, we are not nearly as good at dividing attention as we think we are. What is actually happening in the brain is, and listen to this for work, I have to remind myself of this all the time. I don't like emails to stack up, but if I keep checking email, I'm working on this project, I go to email, my brain is not divided. It is switching over to email. And then I go back to this project, and then I have to get back in gear again. Then I go check that email, back in gear again. It is not efficient. It's exhausting. Do y'all ever have these days where you feel so busy and man, I don't have much to show for it? You might be trying to go, there's too much back and forth. That where we use this is for habitual tasks that have muscle memory, or we really don't have to think about it. For example, you might be able to load the dishwasher and talk on the phone with your friend, because I can load the dishwasher in my sleep, that kind of thing. Fidget devices would be an example of divided attention, but that's a good one. because there's a muscle memory thing that's regulating for a lot of individuals with ADHD. Selective attention, the ability to tune out extraneous stimuli and know what to focus on. I'm sure you can imagine by now there's a sensory component to that. We must be able to process both ears simultaneously to localize sound and turn down the volume on this and turn up the volume on the correct thing. But could it be a learning difference? This is not about intelligence. A lot of students with ADHD are absolutely brilliant, but their ability to accomplish math or something in English language arts or whatever the subject is does not mesh with their ability. There's a learning difference there. I don't know what is relevant and irrelevant, what to tune out right now. What was the important part? You have to see the big picture and how the details fit into that. There's, if I'm having trouble understanding the concept, I don't know what to focus on right now.
Right.
So think about that. So what are the foundational causes of inattention? And even when you kind of identify it, very rarely does an individual have difficulty in all of these areas of attention. So what are the circumstances? Log it. The patterns will start emerging, and then you start knowing what to do about it.
Brilliant.
Okay, let's move on. So uncover the triggers with a distraction tracker. If you have teens or if you're doing this for yourself, you know, what was the task I was doing? How was I what was I thinking about the project? How was I feeling about it? Overwhelmed, confident, frustrated. I lost focus. What made me lose focus? What did I do? What helped me get back on track? Log it, log it, log it. You will find what to do. And then when you do this, you can predict and handle the triggers before they arise. Man, I get really worked up about geometry because this is not in my wheelhouse. I know that. So what can I do to feel better about it? Are there overarching themes of negative self-talk? Is there a real learning struggle here? If I don't know where I am in space, how am I going to understand spatial concepts, for example? Geometry was much harder for me because I had visual spatial issues growing up with my eyes and my equilibrium. Right. So I could do algebra all day long. I still struggled in geometry, and I made A's. So I want to point out that this does not mean that your kids aren't struggling. We can't just base it on grade. How hard are they turning to get there?
Sure.
Is it overwhelming them? One thing that is fun, you can do this really at any level, but think about if you have a young kid who has they're supposed to write a book report. Pretend like you're writing this book report to your favorite sports star or superhero. You know, anything where I'm investigating. I'm not writing a boring paper. I'm an investigator. And, you know, connect it to something they care about. Teach kids and ourselves to remind us of why we're doing it. When we understand why something matters, how much harder. I remember growing up and thinking, why do I need to learn this? When am I ever going to use it? That's not very motivating. But Corey and I have talked in the past about examples of math. A lot of times, when am I ever going to use this math? We use algebraic thinking far more than we're using X, Y's, and Z's. If this equals this, I mean, we're seeing how things relate to one another, how they go together. I am dividing and adding and multiplying and subtracting when I figure out how much money I've saved so far, how much more I have to go to buy that thing I want with my allowance, that kind of thing. Disarm reactance by bundling incentives. We have this thing called psychological reactance. We all have it, where don't tell me what to do. And it's there on one level or another. Sometimes it's quite subconscious and sometimes it's very overt. But we even don't want ourselves to tell ourselves what to do.
Right.
Like, Heather, you really need to get out there and work out. Don't tell me what to, like, even it's inside your own brain, much less a parent doing it. But by bundling incentives, for example, if you want to review for a history test with your son or daughter for tomorrow, and they love playing catch, go play catch while you review the information. You are bundling something positive with something they really don't want to do. Working out, if you're one who wants to get in better shape, be healthier, but you just have trouble, do you like podcasts? Do you like audiobooks? What's your favorite music? You pair that. I get to listen to my favorite music, and I always feel good when I do that. Just do it while you're on a treadmill.
Right.
That's what that is. 10-minute rule. Just do this. Tell yourself, just do this for 10 minutes. And at the end of 10 minutes, you can go check social media. You can go do that thing that's just in your ear right now. But a lot of times 10 minutes is not insurmountable. Of course, for younger kids, maybe it's 5 minutes. But what often happens is you get, I can do this for 10 minutes. And you start knocking it out. The 10 minutes comes and you don't even want to stop. You got your groove. The strategy of inconvenience is very evidence-based. There is research showing, let's say that video games, like there's an addiction there. By putting the game controllers, the remote for the TV, whatever, where you have to get up and go get it. This is a little sad that this is true, but it just is. Putting something out of sight behind a door where it takes effort. There's a favorite donut shop, and man, I got to cut down on that. Okay, I can have donuts, but I can only do it if I walk to the shop, not the one that's right across the street. Right. I walk to the one 2 blocks down. You're much less likely to do it. Make it more inconvenient for yourself. That is not just about getting more discipline. That is proven to work with breaking addictions.
Yeah.
Opportunity cost. Okay, opportunity cost. The brain's number one job is to protect us. And it is saying, what is the shortest route from A to B? And so are we removing the things? If there are a lot of dopamine producing, that's that motivating reward, feel good chemical that's not working properly often in ADHD brains. If video games and all these other things are right there, the thought of doing homework, the opportunity cost just went way up. This is costing me the video game. If that is not even an option, and you can do this by really having set up a regular schedule, even if I wasn't doing homework right now, it's not video game time. Now the opportunity cost of doing the homework is less. Effort pre-commitments. This says that before you even get started, before you're feeling frustrated, you make a promise to yourself, I am going to commit to getting 50% of this done today. We live up to the identity we give to ourselves. I posted something yesterday about how assuming a new identity, ex-smokers, people who identify as ex-smokers, they are still identifying themselves as it relates to smoking. They are at a much higher risk of starting to smoke again than those who replace that with something like, I'm health conscious, I'm a health nut.
Yeah.
So give yourself an identity to live up to. The brain will create a ripple effect of things, and those come with a pre-packaged bundle of behaviors. If I'm health conscious, that means I exercise, I don't smoke, I eat right, etc. Be a container, not a fixer. Think about kids as a plant, okay? What a container has the soil, the nutrients, we water that soil. There are boundaries there. There's still protection for that plant. Whereas a fixer that kind of goes back to being a collaborator and not a director. Sometimes we have to let our kids have the possibility of failing. That's how they learn and grow. But we are there, and we're only going to let it go so far. We are their protective container. We are not the fixer who is constantly telling them which leaf to prune and where to plant. Okay. Word for accommodations. This is part of being a container, not a fixer. As kids move into the tween years, and especially in the teen years, it is really great for them to be part of their IEP or 504 meetings, ARD meetings. Willingness, remind kids to think of times they were willing to try something that was out of their comfort zone and that it paid off. They were willing to face uncomfortable emotions. O stands for on the team. They are on the IEP team. They are speaking up. What do they see their needs as being? Risk versus reward. Often look at the accommodations. How are they working? If it's not working, replace it. D is discretion. I highly recommend. So many kids are embarrassed to make use of their accommodations because, man, I'm trying to figure out who I am. The worst thing in the teen years, and I know we want them to not feel this way, but it's just part of development. I want to fit in on a certain level. We want to teach individuality, but it is embarrassing when they're like, if a teacher's very overt, hey, remember you have and they also are often taught, some people actually will say, you're so lucky you have ADHD or you have dyslexia. I wish I had it. So I had the test handed to me on a silver platter. Discretion. What are some subtle cues that teachers can give the students to remind them of the accommodations that are not embarrassing? That needs to be written into the IEP or 504. They are much more likely to use them. But keeping in mind, these are all things that can really help kids stay focused and not get distracted. But the opposite of distraction is not attention. And this is pretty cool if you teach kids this. The opposite of distraction is traction. Traction is what moves you closer to your goals and values. What do you care about? Maybe there's a lot about this class you don't like, but how does it help you with the end game? You're wanting to do XYZ for a living. If we don't know what our goal is, we don't know what is giving us traction and what isn't.
Yeah.
So that really gets a values-based premise for everything going. So address the faulty, this is with anything. Instead of addressing the behavior itself, address the faulty underlying beliefs, self-talk that lead to dysregulation. I talk a lot about that, but the why beneath the why beneath the why.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, so now let's talk about time management. The reason, there are some really outstanding apps out there. Do you want to know why they often fail? That apps like this focus almost entirely on arrangement of time. There are 3 primary skills involved in time management. Time awareness, thinking realistically about time, understanding it's a limited resource. One of the core challenges often of ADHD and other neurodevelopmental struggles is time blindness. If you have kids who keep asking you, when, I meant to do it, they're always running late, even though you've set all these things in place. I know you said 10 minutes. I hear the words. I don't know what 10 minutes feels like. Sometimes kids with time blindness have test anxiety. I have 45 minutes to take this test. I don't know what 45 minutes feels like. So if you have kids who get anxious or you get their test back and you see a lot of careless errors, that can be because of time blindness. So we learn time awareness in our bodies first. Play rhythm games. You drum a rhythm, they drum it back to you. They drum a rhythm, you drum it back. Playing music, just have them estimate time. How long do you think this will take? And then clock it and see how long it actually took so they can start learning their perception versus how long things actually take. Arrangement is all about designing and organizing goals, schedules, tasks to use time effectively. That's what apps do. Planners come in very handy here. And by the way, a lot of times people think planners don't work for my kid, or they'll ask, what is the perfect planner? There's no such thing. It depends on how your brain works. When you are getting a planner if you just let kids pick out a planner, what are they going to do? Yeah. They're going to pick the one that looks cool. Exactly. That's my favorite color. It's glittery. It has this character on it.
You remember Trapper Keepers?
Yes.
Oh man, I'm dating myself, but those things were epic.
They were, yes. I didn't have a Trapper Keeper. I had the knockoff of that, but my friends had Trapper Keepers.
Man, that is so great. Yeah, so great.
But ask kids, how will you use this to keep up with tasks? And pick one that works with how your child's or teen's brain works. Same thing for you. And you can decorate it to make it look cool. Make it fun by let them know. We can add stickers. You can make this fun, but also put fun things in there. Family vacations, people's birthdays, the party we're having Friday night, so that they don't just associate a planner with dreaded tasks. And it also gives them more practice. If they're hosting a slumber party, have them put what they need to have done by each day to be ready for the party. And if they're getting another practice point on that. Adaptation requires cognitive flexibility. We had our game plan in place, but monitoring the use of time while performing activities and adjusting it to interruptions or shifting priorities. You thought one thing was a priority, and then your boss says, no, this meeting got moved up. I need that report by tomorrow. And being able to switch gears.
Yeah.
You got sick, or the bus broke down after the game, and I have less time how do we readjust? Practice cognitive flexibility. I did an entire cognitive flexibility show. When you grow flexibility, you're growing time adaptation. But externalize time, help them see it. There, you can have a clock that is color coded for you have this 10 minutes in the morning to get dressed. You have this much time to eat breakfast. Like have it color coded and they can see if they're on track or not. You know, that kind of thing. But I want to point out that procrastination is almost never a time management issue. Procrastination is a self-regulation issue, an emotional regulation issue. So sometimes with ADHD, I wait for that dopamine hit of the deadline looming, and then suddenly I can hit it. Or it can be anxiety, perfectionism. What if I fail? What if I succeed and that shines a bigger light on me? That kind of thing. So know that if these top three aren't ringing a bell for your situation, procrastination is about emotional regulation. And that's where you want to get to the underlying beliefs. Why am I so scared of failure? Do I have rejection sensitivity? Do I think I'm the equivalent of my actions? Why am I afraid to have a spotlight shown on me? That might show that a kid that you think is so confident really may not be.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on. And the other thing with time is, and this really relates to arrangement, is I highly recommend getting out a piece of paper, having boxes like this and talking about this with your kids. Do they know the difference between important and urgent? Do they know the difference between important and not important? So teach them that the important and urgent things come first. Those are crises, deadlines, last minute tasks. And when you work on this, take care of time blindness and the emotions behind procrastination, you will live less in that top left square, right? Yeah. Important and not urgent, relationships, healthy lifestyle, exercise, relaxation, hobbies. Log those in, schedule those just like you do meetings and homework time and study time. But they're not urgent. You can fit them where they make sense in the schedule, but they're still important.
Yep.
Not important and urgent, needless meetings, emails, internal pressure that you're applying to yourself. This would be where you think you have to answer that email right then. And then your mind is having to go back and forth between tasks and it's not efficient. Not important and not urgent, internet surfing, TV, gaming, stress cleaning. There's a time and a place for all of these. But there's a time that we need to just veg out and have fun. Let's watch a movie as a family. That's still important. And you're also working on relationships there. Yep. But we need a time to decompress. We need a time to let our minds wander. But that comes after those others. So schedule, values, protected time. Yes.
This is the way that I organize my day. And the truth is, when I'm not really doing well with organization, I find that the top left always fills up with all these bullets. Everything's urgent. Everything's important. Right. And the truth is there was a Microsoft executive actually that I saw speak, and he said that the human person is only able to accomplish a total of two things in the day. And I don't know about that, but I think what he was just trying to say was like, lower your expectations for what is urgent and important, and actually focus on getting those things done in your day rather than trying to focus on all of this stuff and putting it all in the urgent and important column, you know? Yes.
And I love that. And along those lines is a really good recommendation is to not have every single thing that you need to do on your to-do list. If you have a to-do list, time blocking often works better than to-do lists. I even have my teams do that, like block off time when they're going to do these tasks. Because if they're just on a list, they can keep getting pushed back. But if you are going to have one, there's nothing wrong with that. It's everybody works differently. Don't have every single thing on there. You know, have a running list, but then have the things that you actually plan to accomplish today. Because otherwise, what can often happen is that long list of 27 things is so overwhelming. I can't even scratch the surface of that. So I'm not going to do anything at all. And I'm not going to have much of a reward feeling because, I got 3 things done, but there's still 24 left. Whereas if you have 5 things on that list and celebrate progress. And this is not just on a list. This is, they paid attention longer. Maybe they didn't the grade wasn't that great, but man, I'm going to just use a new strategy. How did that feel? Celebrate progress along the way. That keeps motivation going as well. But a lot of times kids don't get started because they don't know where to start. So helping them, okay, you've got this science project. What are the parts that will help get the whole thing done? And then helping them put those in order. I can tackle this chunk. I can tackle this chunk. And have due dates on those sections apart from what the school due date is to keep on track. Okay, let's move on. All right, disorganization. Again, a person can be very organized in one way and completely disorganized in another way. So it's not enough to say, I am disorganized or my child is disorganized. Where are you organized and where are you disorganized? One is declutter. Clutter in the environment leads to a cluttered mind. Look at this little guy on the left. That's a lot. We are kind of putting up bowling alley bumpers. What can we take off that mental sketch pad where only the important stuff is in there? What am I supposed to be doing? Hey, Mom, where's my pencil? Organization. Look how involved it is. Mapping thoughts, managing time, recalling, planning, focusing, sequencing, categorizing, prioritizing, self-regulating, and knowing how to get things done. There's a lot involved in organization. Which parts of that are in the way? When your kids are younger, do they have trouble sequencing a story? We have some kids, when we do the reading portion of our assessment, they get so many facts, figures, details correct, but they are completely out of order. And that is a precursor. That is predicting what their time management is going to look like a little bit later. So think about what is getting in the way. Do they avoid tasks because of overwhelm, perfectionism, fear of failure, success, cognitive inflexibility? Sometimes I know how to do 90% of this task, but there's one part either I don't know how to do or I dread, so I don't do it at all. Very rigid type of thinking. Yeah. There are times where in order to do X, Y, Z, I just need to make this one phone call. I don't want to make that phone call. That's going to stink. Get over that one hurdle. It's suddenly everything else falls in place. Find out what's going on. Ask kids, show me the hard part. Help them see how one assignment is similar to something they've done in the past. What did you learn from that task that you can bring into this one? Do they struggle with seeing how things go together, how it connects to things they already understand? Visual spatial skills. If it involves me needing to place things in different places, if your kids have do your kids have difficulty following directions, period? Or do they have difficulty following directions if they involve directional words? Over, under, between, beside. Do they have to go to different rooms to solve something? That makes it hard to use a planner. We talked about time blindness. Working memory runs out of storage. Even if I can do something, the more energy and I'm churning to do it, that mental sketch pad gets taken up very quickly. Emotions can fill it where I can't hold in mind what I need to be doing. So do they ignore distractions? Is it a regulation issue? Match the picture is something that's very good for organizing a backpack, a bedroom. In other words, if you have kids where you're like, we've been going to school for like 2.5 months now, and they still don't know that they need to have their violin with them when they walk out the door on Thursdays. How is that possible? Or they have soccer practice. Why don't they have their soccer bag with them? Take a picture of them when they are 100% ready to walk out the door.
Yep.
And tell them to match the picture. Do they have their shoes on, their belt? Do they have their lunch and their musical or sports equipment? And the first couple of times, you may have to say, okay, that's really good. You've got a lot more done today than you usually do. Now, what else are you missing? Help them see. And what happens is this helps them learn that the big picture is this is what it is to be ready to walk out the door for school. The details go into that big picture, and it teaches them mental schemas that translate into other areas. You can do the same thing as this is what a clean bedroom looks like. Match the picture.
Yep.
That has saved a lot of people a lot of headache. People are like, I can't believe how magical that is. It is evidence-based. Okay, yep. Let's move on.
It's so true. It's so true. The list helps a ton. We lost our list because our ADHD kid actually took it, and I gotta fixate it to the wall. I gotta staple it to the wall.
Okay, now if it is disorganization of thought, keep in mind, we talked about 12 orchestras playing at the same time. Almost anything we do in life throughout every day, the brain must communicate well together. Experts will tell you that issues with ADHD and other neurodiverse struggles are about lack of connectivity in the brain, lack of rhythm of all of the messages left to right and front to back communicating and working as a team. I have to listen and visually process and focus and ignore distractions and organize my thoughts and write things down. That is a rhythm thing where the brain's communicating properly. This is called the Freyer model. It is outstanding way to deepen learning and garner motivation, really kind of everything. Because the way a lot of kids study is they will just glance through what they highlighted in their book. They'll glance over their notes and they will memorize information. Memorization is important because the more automated I can access, 6 times 6 is 36, that involved no brain fuel. I have the rest of it to put it into this massive equation. Okay, so I already know this, the state capital of Texas and Utah and Arizona. When I know that, I still have more brain fuel left to do the more complex tasks. So memorization is important, but it is not understanding. It is not understanding. So help them think about the material. Scanning through is not true learning. You can get by with it when you're younger. If you have kids who sailed through school in the early grades, like, what on earth? Why are they struggling now? They're just not applying themselves. It must be their attitude, because I know they're smart. Yes, they're smart. Do they know how to deepen their understanding and connect all the dots? The early grades are about memorizing some basic information so that then you can put it all together in ways that make sense later. So put whether it's vocabulary, a math concept, that goes in the middle. What is the definition of that concept or that word in the student's words, not what Webster says? Because again, I can spout off what they say. It doesn't mean I really get the meaning. Use it in a sentence. Using your knowledge makes it make sense. What are some examples of this? This makes me think of when I played baseball and this happens. This reminds me of a vacation. Or come up with examples. Come up with non-examples. Why is that important? It grows compare and contrast skills. Those are crucial for critical thinking. Our ability to understand how things are alike and how they're different grows our problem-solving, decision-making skills. I'm looking at homes. They're alike in this way, but this one has this pro and this one has this pro, and they have different cons. Which ones are more important to me? If we have sensory issues and have trouble seeing how things are alike and different, it impacts this ability. Draw or illustrate it. Research shows that the brain processes images 60,000 times faster than text.
Wow.
So you are adding visual spatial awareness. And by the way, another thing, a lot of kids enjoy drawing, and it's a release. It makes it fun, right? What's novel and interesting, that gets motivation going. But also, by the way, there is an enormous tie between ADHD and fine motor struggles. And my kids are so athletic, they have good motor skills. How automated is it? The more laborious fine motor is, the less likely I am to be able to put my thoughts into paper. So you're getting some visual motor practice, fine motor, and that there are just like hundreds of studies showing the link between fine motor and a lot of neurodevelopmental struggles, including ADHD. Yeah. But look how many ways you're using the same concept. Now I get it. That is actual learning.
Unbelievable. I love this visual. This is a great visual. And it kind of takes me into my next thing, which is this visual, because and guys, I don't know if you know this, but Heather actually puts these visuals together. She builds these. I mean, these are, you need to, I think I'm telling you, you're a graphic designer in another life, Heather.
I enjoy doing this. And I try to, I think if you can hear the words, it's multimodality, you know? So we're talking about a holistic plan, playbook.
Yep.
And we talked about how ADHD so often co-occurs with depression, anxiety, all kinds of mental health struggles. With or without this, we need these things. But these are things that are evidence-based to help in the overall ADHD plan. In the top left, you see that lamp, especially as we're approaching fall and winter seasons, seasonal affective disorder. But if you're struggling with dysregulation, you might be more likely, even if you don't have an official diagnosis, but exposure to light that is sort of designed for SAD can really help for 20 minutes. Not having a rush morning in general makes such a difference. If you get up and you're just rush, how are they going to show up to school? Frenetic. And the emotional brain's in charge, and they're going to be more likely to be impulsive, distractible, etc. Yeah. Make time for hobbies. Clock those in, just like you do meetings. relationships, connection. Think about how the pandemic impacted so many people because of the lack of connectivity. Make time for that. And if your kids have social issues, which can be quite common with a lot of neurodevelopmental struggles, observe what's going on, role play, see what the issues are. Talk to the other parents about, man, Jason loves playing with Tom. I know he can, he has this struggle. We're working on it. Here's something that really helps him. And by the way, the reason I actually chose this particular image is it's Jenga. Jenga is a fun way to grow impulse control. Wow. Because you have to have such controlled movements.
It's so true. I love Jenga. I love it. And my kids are great at it too, all of them.
It might not be great if you have kids with sound sensitivity, as you can imagine. But that is an excellent impulse control thing. What are the sleep patterns? Getting rid of blue light, electronics, and at least an hour before sleep. We could do a whole show on sleep. The last thing we want to do is get anxious about not sleeping, because then the anxious brain's not going to fall asleep. But sleep is pivotal, paramount. Mm-hmm. I get this question a lot. A lot of kids will take melatonin for sleep. There are no research studies showing what the harm might be of long-term use. It needs to be in low doses. I am not going to give you recommendations about this. Talk to your doctor. But melatonin is a neuroprotective chemical that in most cases is safe for short-term use at low doses. But a mistake that people often make is they take it 30 minutes before bed, and it needs to be taken 90 to 120 minutes before bed so that it's fully in your system when it's time to fall asleep, and it's out of your system when it's time to get going the next day. Sometimes you can really help circadian rhythms by having kids watch the sunset. That actually has impact on the brainwaves. There's a lot we could say about this. How, have it as dark as possible unless your kids are afraid of the dark. There is a primitive reflex called the spinal galant that can interfere with sleep. It may not just be ADHD, just so you know. Teach kids to pause. This girl in the bottom left, she's literally stopping to smell the flowers. Yeah. There is research on being awestruck, having a sense of wonder. Yeah. Not to mention that nature is huge for mental health.
Oh, yeah.
Meditation, and a lot of you are going to say, yeah, right. But mindfulness, you want to tell me to be still, it doesn't mean they have to, sit in a lotus position, but teaching kids to just put everything out of their minds and only be present in the here and now. What do you see, smell, hear, touch, taste? Yeah. Exercise, very important. This young lady is working on her core, among other things, a lot of upper body there. When we engage our core, 200 million neurons fire off from the cerebellum to the other parts of the brain that help us with attention, regulation, impulse control, social skills, reading, writing, spelling, math. We need to get the heart rate going for the cardio benefits. And you want to make sure kids finish their exercise at least 3 hours before sleep. And as far as diet matters, there are some very specific vitamins and minerals that are crucial for serotonin production, dopamine production. Just in general, just think about the chemical messengers in the brain that help all the highways in the brain communicate. High protein. Protein helps build neurotransmitters such as dopamine. High in fiber. You want complex carbs. B6, magnesium. Magnesium helps with the metabolism of B6. These are associated with memory, irritability, attention. D3 is often low, especially in this age where we're aware of skin cancer. So D3, vitamin C, zinc, iron also. I didn't list that here because I want to say too much iron is very dangerous. So iron is often low in those with ADHD, but make sure you know it's low before you take an iron supplement. Omega-3s are huge. You want to think about an elimination diet. When kids have brain imbalances, neurodevelopmental struggles such as ADHD, dyslexia, autism, with or without diagnoses, the brain tells the gut how to process food. So if the brain's having trouble communicating so that I can focus and be organized and manage my time, it also can send faulty signals about how to process food. So think about eliminating dairy, gluten, sugar, one at a time, and do it for 10 to 14 days to see if you notice a difference. Even artificial sweeteners have been tied to having some of the same effects of sugar. You want to limit caffeine. Caffeine can often interact poorly with stimulant medication, not to mention that it can become addictive. It doesn't necessarily mean no caffeine. Maybe it's something you do. Okay, it's test day. I want you to be alert, and you're kind of a slow starter, and the test is at 8. Yep. But be wary of that. Just be aware. MSG in some studies, which can also be found in yeast extract, which is tricky, has been found to have poor effect on cognition. Too much sodium. There is a very clear link between high sodium levels and ADHD index scores. So we could do an entire show on any one of these topics. But this is body, brain, spirit. All of it matters. Absolutely all of it matters. And it matters for all of us. It matters even more when one is struggling with dysregulation. And these are things to help keep us regulated.
Heck yeah. Okay. Heck yeah. I think we got one more.
Yeah. Yeah. The last one here is another thing is anybody who watches this knows how I feel about this. We want to help kids see the superpowers in ADHD. That does not mean we don't care about the struggles. We want to support and empathize with kids in the struggles and empower them to figure it out while celebrating their strengths. By the time an individual with ADHD is 12 years old, experts estimate they've received 20,000 more negative comments than their neurotypical peers. Wow. We want to build up, have them name 5 things they like about ADHD. We are not saying that it doesn't come with a struggle. We've been addressing that on the other pages. Yeah. Tell them something you love about it. I love how spontaneous you are. I wish I was more spontaneous. Sometimes I have a hard time trying something new. Now, sometimes what can happen if we don't use it in the right way, and talk about the difference between, help them see the positive side of the coin of spontaneous or impulsive. Depending on how we use it, determined, stubborn, help them, don't label them with negative character labels. Help them see the strength in that. Yeah. Read stories or watch a movie with relatable neurodiverse characters. If you want book lists, I have them, and I've shared them on other shows. Yep. But these characters can become like best friends to your kids. There are book series, and they can't wait to read the next one. If you have reluctant readers, sometimes it's just we haven't found the right book. Empathize during struggles, help them recognize and cultivate their strengths. What are they interested in? Give them opportunities to flex those muscles. A hobby, what's something you can enroll them in without them having a CEO schedule. They don't need an extracurricular 5 days a week. In ways that matter to them. I see you. You matter. I'm giving you dignity, and I'm helping you explore. And sometimes perseverance is so important. The power of yet, keep going when the going gets tough. But we also need to pick our battles. Sometimes we're like, if you enroll in piano, you have to take it for 6 years.
Oh, geez.
Kids are in this exploration stage, finding out what they like and what they don't like. They're discovering themselves. Yep. So in the big scheme of things, how much does this matter? Maybe you're going to see this athletic season through, but if that's not for them, we are kind of denying who they are. If we force them to say in something, maybe you're going to do something active. But let's talk about what that thing is. That the collaboration. Teach kids how to be assertive, dispel myths, and avoid shame. You want to know a lot of the myths, we covered a ton of them a couple of weeks ago. But self-advocacy, when you are collaborating and growing these executive function skills and teaching them to solve problems for themselves, helping them identify what works for them and what doesn't, they can self-advocate for themselves better with teachers or when it comes to bullying, which is what I plan to talk about next week. Hey. Are there community events about ADHD awareness that help them be a walking post for it? There's so much misinformation out there. If I am teaching you about it, it sinks even deeper into my soul, So engage in community activities, maybe arrange something, why not? Or have them write a letter of gratitude to someone who does see them and who hasn't shamed them, and who has helped cultivate and help them see the beautiful person they are. So just think about things you could do each day to kind of celebrate ADHD, but also being very real about the struggles and help them. We are all a set of strengths and struggles. Do you have anybody in your family? What are some things that you face that are similar so they don't feel all alone?
It is ADHD Awareness Month, everybody, and we want to let you know for our last slide here that Heather has 3 brain balance centers: Katy, Mansfield, and the Woodlands in the Texas area. So I know those are all over the map, but if you live in the Texas area and you are close to either Katy, Mansfield, or the Woodlands, please let us know. This is our contact information and our phone numbers. And you can also find Heather over on Facebook at The Hidden Churn, and also The Hidden Churn over on Instagram. So Heather, take us out with this quote. Where is this from?
Oh, it's not really a quote. I kind of adapted it from something else, but we must give the goodness and the gifts in neurodiverse kids an opportunity to grow. With gardeners who see that they are beautiful plants, not a weed, they can flourish. Let them know we see them. We see their strengths and we see their struggles, and we are there for the entire gamut.
Beautiful. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. And if you're watching on the replay, please feel free to leave a comment. We respond to every comment, and we will see you next week. And thanks for everything. All right, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Bye.